He thought it was just another school day. A simple lunchbox, the same hallway, the same classmates. But the moment he sat down, whispers turned into laughter, sharp, cruel, echoing across the cafeteria. They weren't just mocking his food, they were mocking him. He kept his head low, wishing it would stop. But what none of them knew was that the truth behind his family would shake the entire school to its core. And when the principal stepped in, everything changed. For Jamal, lunch had always been the simplest part of his day. His mother packed it with care every morning. Rice, beans, and the kind of food that carried the warmth of home. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough. He never cared that it looked different from what most kids at school ate. To him, it was comfort. To them, it was something else. Jamal was a quiet student. He did his homework, played basketball after class, and kept out of trouble. His teachers respected him, and most days he managed to blend into the background. But middle school was a place where being different made you a target. And Jamal, without realizing it, was already on someone's list. The cafeteria was loud that day, buzzing with chatter and trays slamming on tables. Jamal found his usual spot in the corner, unwrapping the foil carefully so nothing spilled. But the moment he did, he felt it, eyes watching, whispers spreading. A group of kids nearby started laughing, pointing, pretending to gag at the smell. He kept his head down just like always. Pretend it doesn't matter. Pretend it doesn't hurt. But this time, it wasn't just about lunch. This time, it was about to turn into something bigger. And Jamal had no idea that the person who would soon step into this story, the one who would silence the laughter, was watching from just beyond the doorway. If you believe in justice, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story that matters. The laughter started small, just a couple of kids pointing at Jamal's lunchbox. But soon, it spread like wildfire across the cafeteria. Forks paused midair, conversations hushed, and more heads turned toward him. The mocking grew louder, bolder. What is that? One boy sneered, holding his nose dramatically. Another girl laughed so hard she nearly spilled her soda. Smells like garbage, someone shouted from the back. Jamal felt his chest tighten. His mother had woken up early to cook that meal. Every bite carried her love, her effort, her culture. But now, in front of hundreds of classmates, it had been reduced to a cruel joke. He forced himself to chew slowly, pretending not to hear. But the whispers clawed at his ears. Why can't he just eat normal food? No wonder he sits alone. He's so weird. A tray suddenly slammed on the table beside him. A boy from the basketball team leaned close, smirking. Hey, Jamal, want me to buy you a real lunch? Something American? His friends roared with laughter. Jamal's hands shook under the table. He wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor. He thought if he stayed quiet, maybe they'd get bored. But instead, the circle around him grew tighter. Phones appeared, screens recording, flashes of cruel grins as they captured his humiliation. He could already imagine the captions, "Look at what Jamal eats." By tomorrow, it wouldn't just be this cafeteria. It would be the whole school. The noise became unbearable. His food, once comforting, now looked alien on the tray in front of him. He wanted to throw it away, to make it stop. But deep down, he knew that giving in would mean they'd won. And just when he thought he couldn't take another second, the sound of firm footsteps cut through the chaos. The laughter quieted, one by one, as the figure at the cafeteria doorway stepped forward. It was the principal. But instead of looking angry at the noise, his eyes locked directly on Jamal. And with a voice that carried across the room, he said words no one expected. The cafeteria went still, the laughter choking off into nervous silence. The principal's voice had that effect, sharp, commanding, impossible to ignore. But what shocked everyone wasn't just that he had walked in. It was the way he looked directly at Jamal, as if he already knew what was happening. He walked slowly across the room, the echo of his shoes hitting the floor like a drumbeat. Students shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some tucking their phones away, others suddenly fascinated by their untouched food. When he reached Jamal's table, he didn't look at the so-called friends who had mocked him. He looked at Jamal's lunch, rice, beans, vegetables. Then back at Jamal, his expression unreadable. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then, in a voice calm but edged with steel, the principal said, "Do you all know whose food this is? Do you even understand who this young man is?" Murmurs spread across the cafeteria. Jamal's eyes widened. His hands were frozen around his fork. The principal straightened, scanning the crowd. "You laugh at what you don't understand. You mock what you've never had to value. But let me tell you something, Jamal's father is a man you should all respect. A man who wears a uniform that protects every single one of you." He paused, letting the words sink in. His father is a decorated officer. A man who has risked his life for this country. Gasps rippled through the cafeteria. A few jaws dropped. The basketball player who had leaned over Jamal turned pale, shrinking into his seat. The principal's voice grew firmer. "So when you mock this food, you're mocking the hands that provide it. The hands of a family that has sacrificed more than you can imagine. And I will not stand by and let ignorance humiliate integrity." For Jamal, the room blurred. He could feel every pair of eyes on him, but not with ridicule this time. With shock. With shame. With something that almost felt like respect. And in that moment, the balance of power shifted completely. The silence in the cafeteria lingered long after the principal's words. No one dared to laugh. No one dared to move. The only sound was the hum of the vending machine in the corner, a sharp contrast to the storm of shame that had just swept the room. Jamal sat frozen, unsure of what to do. For so long, he had been used to shrinking into himself, trying not to be noticed. But now, every eye was on him for a different reason, not ridicule, but recognition. The principal placed a hand gently on Jamal's shoulder, his voice softer now. "Never be ashamed of where you come from, son. What you carry in this lunchbox is more than food. It's heritage. It's sacrifice. It's love." And with that, he turned to the rest of the cafeteria. "This school will not tolerate mockery of culture, of family, of sacrifice. If you think laughter makes you stronger, you are wrong. Real strength is in respect." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. The same kids who had laughed the loudest now kept their eyes down, their faces red. Phones that had been raised so confidently were slipped back into pockets, the evidence of cruelty erased in silence. For Jamal, the weight of humiliation slowly gave way to something else, a strange, powerful sense of pride. His food, his family, his story, they weren't something to hide. They were something to honor. That day, the cafeteria didn't just learn who Jamal's father was. They learned that mocking someone's difference only reveals your own ignorance. And Jamal would carry that lesson not as a scar, but as a badge of strength. Because in a world so quick to laugh at what it doesn't understand, standing tall in who you are can be the greatest victory of all.